So moving on. You know, here's this is actually very, very, very nice to see the Tiemens brothers. I thought that the Tiemens brothers were some sort of artificial intelligence program, or maybe it was Google test, or maybe they were, you know, reptilians, you know, all of this other stuff. But it turns out they're actual brothers, and I hadn't seen them for a while. I hadn't heard the name Tiemens, you know, for a period there. And you see all the high Natashas there in the time. They're all just, everybody's just waving high. And I missed them. I really did, because I think for a while there the Tiemens had top-rated 5, 6, 7, 8 questions, and people thought it was the Tiemens show, and it was, because the Tiemens paid me a vast amount of money to not tell them or tell anybody that I work for the Tiemens. So Isaac Tiemens has a question. Is it even possible to still have the American dream without a frontier? If the American dream is that the children do better than their parents once the generations go from manual labor to skilled laborers to professions to lawyers, where do we go from there? Great question. Funny I was talking about that. I have to just answer this. Vidcock asks, Bill, have I watched the Arroyo, Jeremy Boring's movie? Not only did I watch it, Vidcock, I edited it. I did that cut. I saw it a couple hundred times. So that was my, I edited the Arroyo, all the battle sequences, all that stuff. Jeremy bring the footage back, and that's what I used to do before I did this. So yes, I have seen the Arroyo several thousand times, I would say, by now. And I saw it when it was naked, before all the special effects were put in and all the coloring was done, all the rest of it. I had to flip a couple shots back and forth because the director didn't know about the line, but he knows now, and I thought he did an amazing job. Jeremy did an amazing job with the hat full of money that he had there. I really liked that movie quite a lot. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's a movie called The Arroyo, written, directed by Jeremy Boring, shot in Texas in 2000, and I did the edit on that. I'm very proud of it. So anyway, back to the questions. Do we need a frontier for the American dream? I think we probably do, Isaac, but not for the reasons you listed. The things you were talking about is something I've talked about before, which is this kind of asymptotic problem that our society has. So everybody knows that if you draw an exponential line, as it goes across, it just goes and gets more and more vertical. The further you go in time, the more vertical it goes, and it never ever touches the y-axis. So rapid increase is an exponential graph, and the opposite of that is a asymptotic graph, which starts out growing very high, and as time goes on, it gets flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter, and so on. So you can see the Arroyo on iTunes, by the way. I think, pretty sure it's on iTunes. So this is the second half of your problem I'll talk about first. We have, where do you go for a sense of achievement when you are born into a world of 24-hour climate control, 24-hour entertainment, complete access to the internet, Uber, wherever you want to go, transportation's instantaneous. There's 7,000 channels of TV, and you don't even have to watch those anymore. You can make your own television shows for, $50, something like that. You've never been cold, you've never been hungry, you've never been in pain. 1 out of 100 of you might have been in pain for maybe the half hour it took for the ambulance to get there and get you sedated and numbed up, and your teeth are, more often than not, your teeth are fine, and you don't have to live with toothaches and all the rest of this whole thing. So where do you go from there? If you start there, where do you go? Any one of these things would have been miraculous and a tremendous reward for a life well lived 100 years ago. Just if you could say, no, my children have never been cold. They've walked around saying it's freezing in here, but they mean it's 68 degrees, not negative 30. So where do you go? I mean, it would probably be my grandfather. I think came over from Britain. We'd been coal miners, and then we were factory mill workers, and then we were plumbers, I think, for a couple generations. Then my grandfather came over, and he just shot off to the stratosphere. He was a telephone lineman in 1912, I think, that's something in there. That's state-of-the-art stuff. Hotel manager, and now internet monkey. So where do you go if you start there? Any one of my ancestors, if they had been given any one of the things that I just talked about, no more toothache pain for you, or no more you have 24-hour entertainment, or any one of those things would have just been something you just get down on your knees and thank God for. But when you're born with them, it's just doesn't work out that way, and you have, as that asymptote gets higher and higher and higher, you have less and less room for you to feel like you've advanced. For example, it was probably my grandfather, it might have been my great-grandfather, but somebody in there lived in a house that didn't have running water. And that meant you had to go outside in the cold with a bucket, and use the pump, and the water that comes out of there is kind of filthy. And all of a sudden, there was a point at some place in my ancestors, recent ancestors' history, where one day they were pumping water, and the next day it came out of the wall by magic. And one night they're reading by candles, or trying to see by candles, and everybody's going to bed an hour after sunset, if that. And then the next night their rooms are lit up with electric light. And those things must have been astonishing to them. Astonishing. The first time that they had running water or electricity. I can almost relate to just a tiny little bit of it. I don't mean to equate this with this, because that's serious suffering they were going through. But I was just barely old enough. When I lived in Bermuda, they had 2 channels of TV, and they were on from 11 in the morning to maybe it was 3 in the afternoon until 11 at night, something like that. And they were both black and white stations. And I would visit the States every year to visit my cousins and so on. I went over to my cousins, and they had a color television. And I remember all I wanted to do was just sit there real close, like Homer Simpson close, shadow on the wall, the radiation close, and just stare at a color television. The idea that this thing was transmitting in color just absolutely excuse me, blew me away. And by the way, we are, kids today, here's another way they're kind of getting ripped off. When color TV was starting, they put color on the screen. You look at the skies in Star Trek, and they're purple or they're green. The uniforms are red. And you just bought a color television. You want your damn money's worth in color. And those early shows, I Dream of Jeannie and all that stuff, are just brilliant colors that they had in there. And I remember the Peacock logo too. The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC. Okay. So I remember the excitement of something, significant increase in some aspect of my life. I remember it was like, oh, they got color TV. They haven't experienced any of this. They haven't experienced any intellectual discoveries either. My generation, again, incredibly lucky. My generation, sorry, Tom Bizzle says, at least you had an asymptote to live under. I didn't have an asymptote. We lived out in the street. We ate gravel. My grandfather came home and fed us all poison, and we put in 140 hours at the mill every week. And my father would come home and break bottles and thrash us with jagged knives. Kids today, luxury. If you don't know what that is, go look up 4 Yorkshiremen on YouTube when the show is over. So there's this whole asymptotic problem. And then the second thing that's a problem is what you talked about with the frontier. And I think the frontier is a different issue. It's not like you need a frontier for your standard of living to increase. The frontier issue is different. The asymptotic thing is built into prosperity, I suppose. But I think the frontier thing is, in fact, the issue. I'm going to say those 2 letters again. Here they come. R/K. No, seriously, if you are on a frontier, the definition of a frontier, to me anyways, just off the top of my head, is where civilization meets the wilderness, right? That's the line. And if you're on that line, it's dangerous and risky, and people either haven't done it before or haven't done it well. Nothing's automatic. You're not going down to the 7-Eleven because there is no 7-Eleven. You're learning new things, and one of the things you're learning is how to survive day to day. And no one is smart enough to learn all that. You got to learn from other people's mistakes and how they got killed and all the rest of it. The reason I think the frontier in that regard is important is because the frontier provides you with the kind of challenges to you every day that keeps you smart. I mean, as just as a people, it keeps you smart. We have evidence from how many civilizations? 7, 8, 9, something like that, at least, world-dominating civilizations that show that when they got to the height of their powers, the maximum amount of luxury, maximum amount of military influence, the most trade, all of it, when they're at the top of their game, the thing collapses. And I think it collapses from too much leisure. It's too much ease. It's too easy. And the thing that's remarkable to me about people who I know who lived through the Second World War, for example, my mom not only lived through the Second World War, many of our parents did, but my mom was in London, so they were dropping bombs on her. And she remembers the Blitz. She would have been 9, 10 years old, I guess. And she remembers seeing Winston Churchill on a pile of rubble and all the rest. But the point is that those times of maximum hardship were pretty much universally remembered as the best times of their lives. Doesn't seem like it would make sense, does it? But it's true. Everybody was pulling together. Everybody knew that there was, everybody had skin in the game. Everybody knew that this wasn't a joke. People that they knew were being killed, they knew they could be the next one to be killed that day, that hour, that minute, who knows. She told me about remembering the V1 bombs, the buzz bombs. I think they called them doodle bugs on the streets of London. The buzz bomb was a first guided missile, really, and it's got a little interesting jet engine, a stutter jet engine, and they'd fly it over London. There's accuracy, as you're lucky if you got it over London. But I remember my mom saying, you'd hear them go over, and she said, as long as you could hear them, you're fine. But if they got quiet all of a sudden, you better run, because that's it. When they run them out of fuel, down they go, and this gigantic warhead blows up. So things like that, and you would think those are the kind of things that you wouldn't want to remember, or that would be just so horrible. It's not true. They were the best times of their lives. Good night, Johnny Quest, and may Vectron wrap you in his satiny wings. So this is the problem. The problem with a lack of frontier is a lack of hardship. It's a lack of challenge. It just gets soft mentally, physically. It just gets soft. You can only eat so many donuts, and that's the problem. So how do we get that back? I don't know. I will tell you one thing though. Watching what's happening to this country, if there was a space program, colonization program, I would go. Absolutely. Well, I would have gone before I got engaged. But yeah, because the frontier to me is not so much a location as it's a state of mind. I think that's why I like flying so much. I think I like flying so much just because it's almost like a self-selected frontier. You've got competent people and very, very few jerks, because they don't survive long enough. They either get written up by the FAA and lose their license, or they lose their license and their driver's license and every other thing they got in their credit card. They do something stupid and then they go. So when I'm flying, I am surrounded by competent people, and I'm surrounded by people who take safety very seriously and take all of this very seriously. And it's not that it's not fun, it's a lot of fun, but it's so respectful and it's so professional, and it gives me a couple hours of thinking what it would be like to live in a world where just about everybody was well educated, relatively well off, and doing something difficult, doing it well. It's a culture, and it's a tremendous culture, and so the frontier can be that kind of thing. But on average, Isaac, you're absolutely right. It's America needs a frontier because that's what we're good at. We're good at exploration. We're good at settlement. We're especially good at what used to be called Yankee ingenuity, the ability to make something on the site that did what you needed to do, that invent something and just string it together with wagon wheels and duct tape. So that was what we're good at, and it's what we want. It's certainly what I want, and I think there's something from people that have self-selected themselves. That's what we did. Everybody's here for one reason or another, for some generation back or another. Everybody's here because they were the kind of people that just weren't tired of taking all the crap back home. They're risk takers. It's in our genes, and it's not a joke either. They found the seventh allele or whatever it was, particular gene. However, there is a risk-taking gene, and we're full of it because we're descended from people who selected out for adventure and risk-taking and courage and intelligence. And those of us who didn't have those four things are not with us anymore, and they're not passing down children either. So, yeah, we're like a, it's kind of like a polar bear in a zoo, you know. And they paint the walls white and try to make us think we're back at the North Pole, but we're not. And we want to be. We want to be challenged. You know, we want to have some sense of pride in what we did that day, and so